Guaranteed derivative still.
Greetings and felicitations.
Can I offer you some tea?
Good tea. Nice house.
Would you make me some of that Plomeek soup?
Hello, and welcome to Plomeek Teatime number 36. Also, happy National Astronaut Day, because on May 5th, astronaut Alan Barrett, Shepard Jr., became the first American in space on the Freedom 7 capsule. And also, yes, today's Cinco de Mayo. It's always important to remember that it's not Mexican Independence Day. It's mostly an American holiday. And in case I have to clip this particular portion of my video later, the following is supposed to be a clip about this.
Cinco de Mayo here in the States is an easy excuse to celebrate the gifts of Mexican culture and heritage. You know, tacos, margaritas, mole poblano, but this holiday didn't start as a heritage celebration. Cinco de Mayo originated back in 1862 with the Mexican Army's victory over the French at the Battle of Puebla during the Franco-Mexican War. So you heard that right. Today is not Mexican Independence Day. This marks when a team of 2,000 men, poorly supplied Mexicans, banded together against a very well-established French army 3 times its size, and you know what? They sent the French running. In Mexico, Cinco de Mayo isn't really a big deal. It's mostly just observed in the state of Puebla where that battle went down. So why do we celebrate it here in the U.S.? Well, Chicano activists raised awareness about the holiday back in the 1960s, partially to recognize the victory of indigenous Mexicans over European invaders. And then we took Cinco de Mayo and turned it into a day to celebrate Mexican heritage and culture, especially in places like Houston that have a large Mexican-American population. So you know what that means? It means parades, parties, mariachi music, and you guessed it, lots of traditional Mexican food and drinks.
And so that's just an important PSA about today.
Remember the Alamo.
Yeah, that too. That's a great one. Normally, I like to start with my UFO episode, but our time with Tony today is short, so we're going to start with the science. And if I don't get to the UFO episode, I'll just change the thumbnail later.
All right.
Thank you for being here today, Tony. And also Padre. Great to see you here.
Yes, ma'am.
So the idea of fusion power comes from our observation of it occurring in stars, most specifically our sun. If we can harness that power somehow without needing the pressures that the sun uses to fuse, then we can provide humanity with relatively limitless power, energy, as long as we have all the materials needed to get it going. People have been working at this seriously for over 60 years now, but make breakthroughs now and then. While we're nowhere near success, I believe the payoff is worth the effort. And I'm lucky to have Tony Stark and Padre here to help me explore this topic. The last time I was paying attention, the idea was that one of the materials we needed was helium-3 from the moon to be able to produce fusion power in order to get more energy than we put into the reactor. But the problems of the logistics go beyond that. We have to have technology that works before we start sifting the dirt on the moon. We haven't figured it all out yet. And so one of my favorite science-based YouTube channels is one called Kurskastat, or In a Nutshell. And I really hope it's okay for me to use their descriptions of the 2 types of fusion technologies that are currently under development and experimentation. So in case they don't like me sharing their content later, I'll trim out the following definitions for the 2 types of fusions they're working on. I'm not working on it. The first is called magnetic confinement, and the second is called inertial confinement. Here it is.
The first type of reactor uses a magnetic field to squeeze a plasma in a donut-shaped chamber where the reactions take place. These magnetic confinement reactors, such as the ITER reactor in France, use superconducting electromagnets cooled with liquid helium to within a few degrees of absolute zero, meaning they host some of the biggest temperature gradients in the known universe. The second type, called inertial confinement, uses pulses from superpowered lasers to hit the surface of a pellet of fuel imploding it, briefly making the fuel hot and dense enough to fuse. In fact, one of the most powerful lasers in the world is used for fusion experiments at the National Ignition Facility in the US. These experiments and others like them around the world are today just experiments. Scientists are still developing the technology.
Yes. But we haven't even mentioned the variant, one of my favorite variant, and possibly the easiest method to get at least some kind of fusion, and that is the heavy ion fusion variant of the inertial confinement fusion reactor, which is what the arc reactor is based off of. But I suppose before we get into that, we should probably discuss the difference between fusion and fission. For those of us at home who don't have a pocket nuclear device,
Yeah, I'm surprised you have to explain that part. I thought that was the most obvious part. That fission is when you split the atom, and we do that all the time, and we have tons of nuclear power plants everywhere. And fusion is where you fuse the atoms. It's kind of in the name.
Now, oddly enough, our sun does both, and we'll keep this segment pretty relatively brief. Just to give an overlay, why the atom is so limitless in its application. If we were to actually harness this technology, just the amount of energy that we would be able to fuel the world with very little effort. Like, there would be nothing that would be out of our grasp in case of power consumption, power need, gradients increasing over time. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, that can outpace a reactor that is capable of fusing atoms, even helium, even element 1 and 2, hydrogen and helium. And so it's
Agreed.
like,
And it's not toxic either.
no CO2 footprint, completely green. And the thing is with fission reactors or fission reactions, they take the strong atomic force, the nuclear force that is within the nuclei of an atom, and they release it out. It's like taking an egg, cracking it over a skillet, and watching it just spread out over a skillet. That's like its reaction to being ripped apart. And fusion, on the other hand, it still brings out that massive burst of mass to energy, the M in E equals MC squared being turned into E. And it gives it a longevity, because you're fusing an atom into a heavy isotope of itself, or a heavy ion of itself, and you are taking the remaining subatomic particle that's going to be like, you know what? No, I'm out of here. That little neutron's out of here. That neutron's going to be like, okay, you know what? This isn't a natural state for me to be in. It's hot. I'm going to go find myself a place where there's room to pay rent. So I'm going to leave this nucleus and go to another one. And of course, when that happens, that strong atomic force that holds those particles together is going to release out in regular pulse intervals, fusion pulse charges, as they're called. And
and that's our thermonuclear reaction.
And so I hope that explains a little bit of the difference between, you see those big smokestacks at 3 Mile Island, or every other small town has a nuclear reactor. The Springfield nuclear reactor is a standard fission reactor, although it violates a lot of OSHA codes.
Oh, no kidding. You mean Mr. Burns isn't following the rules? Hello. I want to also say hello to the chat. Franco Walker, hello.
Hello.
Mark Harkness, Darius Munchausen's also here hanging out, and so honored to be in your intro. Oh yeah, you are. I clipped that from one of your shows from a long time ago. I really loved when you would sing everybody's name. And Jim says, can't respond due to mowing lawns, but I'm listening. And yeah, that's also why Scotty isn't here. He's mowing lawns. Anonymous says, "Hell, I got off today and was going to stream a game, but the stream screwed up, so I get to hang out here. Oh, I'm sorry you don't get to play though. But it's a bummer. Hope you get it figured out." Hello to Herc130
Herc.
and Gorilla's Random Thoughts is here. He's gonna catch it on the rewatch. His
Mhm.
headphones are dead. That's a bummer too. Why is everything breaking? Hello, hello to Canadian Spider-Man. Hey. And Darius Munchausen says, "I just learned that Tesla was working on free unlimited energy that seems to have involved cosmic rays. They don't diminish at night
I'd rather not
and
discuss
then
the
are abundant
Tunguska event.
in energy."
There's conjecture that the Tunguska event, the meteor, was actually Tesla's cosmic ray accumulator
But that
failing.
happened a long time ago,
Yeah.
before Tesla even existed. Does Elon have a time machine?
Yeah. It's often conjectured that the Tunguska event is like the failure of the cosmic ray accumulator.
Okay, but you know, he he will experiment with almost anything. He'll throw the spaghetti at the wall and see which one sticks.
Mhm.
So you never know when what he's studying is going to be nothing and when it's going to come up with something.
Right. Now, Gawker's death rattle makes an excellent point here. Per yield, a fission reaction does give us more energy.
Can you read the whole thing?
Yeah. Tony, a minor point of clarification: actual energy production for any given fusion event, this includes thermal and ion, is actually relatively low. Roughly 10 to 15 times more, 50 more times more energy is released in a U-235 fission than fusions. The old krypton and barium. Hey guys, I'm here to play. And the neutron goes. Did you ever hear that that thing in high school? Whenever they were talking about the atom bomb back in the day, they would be like, in order to remember how the reaction works, you say, "What is Superman's home planet?" And you say Krypton, and then what do you do to your dead dog? You bury him. They taught us that anyway, but that's like what U-235 and U-238 split into, and the device, the bomb that shall not be named.
Well, yeah, okay. Definitely. Okay, so and then he clarifies even further, it's just presumed we'd be able to do a lot more fusion events. And so the goal is to be able to do more fusion events than we do fission in order to be able to create enough energy that a power plant would need to produce.
Gawker's bringing the facts. I like this. He's like,
Yeah.
cesium would like a word, and strontium is just hanging around in a milk bar. Yep.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you, Gawker. That was important. And Stream Elements says to subscribe to Dadman Walking and also Admiral Teague. And Gawker says cesium would like a word. And strontium is just hanging around in a milk bar. What's strontium?
Strontium is the radioactive particles you find in fallout, normally isotope 90. But it's usually a resulting remnant of a fission reaction that we have to, accrue to and deal with in the ancient times.
The current times.
The ancient time.
Right. And I have heard of cleaner ways to do the fission that we're doing that we're not working on yet. But if we can figure out fusion, we don't have to deal with any of that. Darius says Tunguska wasn't Tesla's fault. That's just big oil propaganda.
Okay, that beam of light smashing an entire forest. Got it. Play medicine.
Yeah, it's funny.
I knew you'd laugh at that one. I was waiting.
Nice, Mark.
Mark says the bomb that shall not be named. Waterworld.
And then the postman. Wait, what? Kevin Costner? He's still relevant somehow? Let's see here. I suppose we should probably discuss basically how we're playing with helium, how helium-3 goes into it.
Sure.
Let's see here. Normally, you would have two isotopes of helium. The first being helium-2 or deuterium, and the third being tritium or helium-3. And as they fuse within the environment, the release of the errant neutron and the regular helium atom causes the outpulse of the strong atomic force. So if you basically the trick with fusion, unlike fission, it's like fission, you get it all at once. It's like instant power. With fusion, you have to be able to put back in what you get out, and you have to be able to create a cyclical loop with it. That's the reason why our sun has such a longevity to it, you know. And as we get into possibly cold fusion, which I hope that I'm able to get to before 40 minutes from now when I have to leave,
Cool.
it's a nice circle that I'm making with this. So I'm glad that you're showing the sun and how as atoms cool and elements cool and heavier elements begin to stabilize, like platinum and palladium. There's actually locations in the asteroid field. There's an asteroid called Pallas, and it is 63% palladium, pure palladium. And we are talking about, you know, at a prior episode of Plomeek, how to reach out into our own star system and start doing rudimentary things like mining and refinement. One of our biggest first steps ahead is mining palladium and platinum, possibly in the asteroid field, so that if we do crack the formula for cold fusion, which, to be fair, another thing that people don't know about cold fusion is it's not that cold. It's not like, oh, you're going to step into the environment and freeze. It's still incredibly hot. It's just a few zeros worth of difference in temperature to create the same effect of fusing and bouncing that neutron around and getting all of that energy and accumulated in your environment. The stability, the longevity of a cold fusion reactor, a platinum palladium reactor, is that's just what we should strive for. It's also you can have a variant of it with ion fusion as well. I don't have the schematics for it.
Ion fusion. You don't.
Pull that up right here.
I didn't do any preliminary research for any of the cold fusion or or ion fusion, but please continue.
Let's see here. Cold fusion. Wow. Yeah, palladium. The cold fusion fanatics can't get enough of it. This was released 10 years ago. Yeah, the absorbent. Yeah, and this is the reason why they're so good. Is among physicists and chemists, cold fusion, nuclear fusion at close to room temperature, enjoys a reputation on par with creationism. Cold fusion has always been alluring. However, just because it worked, our world energy shortage would be over instantly. It would produce loads of energy from potentially nothing but water and leave very little waste to deal with. It also tempts people precisely because it's pronounced impossible so many ways. It's nothing better than to make your way in the name of science than by demonstrating something impossible. Let's see if we can actually go. That was just a preface.
Well, okay, so I'm just based on the name of it. It's obvious that with cold fusion, it's attempting a way to not have to deal with the thermonuclear part.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to have a massive magnet constantly keeping your environment in tow. You wouldn't have to rely on high-powered lasers to agitate fuel. But it is an interesting concept because if you look at, like I said, this is just going back to the arc reactor. Like, again, the reason why the arc reactor is such a fascinating thing in science fiction and in comics is because it's basically a cold fusion heavy ion fusion reactor that's just constantly able to maintain stability. They even mentioned palladium being like its core element in the earlier movies.
Is there a real scientific basis for using palladium in cold fusion?
I'm looking for it now. This article was from 2010. This was passed around. Yeah, now we go. Here we go. In 1989, two electrochemists, Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons, there we go, those were the names I was looking for, reported that their apparatus had produced an anomalous excess heat of a magnitude that they asserted would defy explanation except in terms of nuclear processes. They further reported measuring small amounts of nuclear reaction byproducts, including neutrons and tritium, and a small tabletop experiment involving electrolysis of heavy water and the surface of palladium electrode. The reported results received wide media attention and raised the hopes of cheap and abundant source of energy. Many scientists have tried to replicate the experiment with few details available. Hopes faded with the large number of negative replications and the withdrawal of many reported positive replications, the discovery of flaws and sources of the experimental error of the original experiment, and finally the discovery that Fleischmann and Pons had not actually detected nuclear reaction byproducts.
And that's one of the saddest things that happens in science when somebody has a successful experiment, but there's no way to replicate it. There's not enough information for other scientists to be able to do it. And therefore, it will garner speculation as to whether it ever occurred to begin with.
Mm-hmm. But, it's fascinating to think about.
Definitely,
So I'm
definitely.
glad that we covered that footnote.
Me
So let's
too.
get back to established fusion conjectures that we are working on.
Okay, but first, Gawker says chemically, strontium has very similar qualities to calcium. Big part of the reason why above ground nuke tests were ended was from a woman gathering up baby teeth and measuring the strontium in them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
The reason why fallout is so dangerous is because that's strontium 90, and if it gets in your mouth or in your skin, it can graft itself to your bones if it gets into your body.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're not testing nukes anymore. That's good. At least not here. That was a crazy time, huh? Anyway.
I should have changed my avatar to a Vault Boy bobblehead today if we were going to take all these pokes at Fallout.
Oh, it's a great game. Subscribe to Cardinal Sin and Jim's Landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
And hello to Plocksword. Franco Walker says cold fusion would be easier to contain, but you would still burn to a crisp in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And Plocksword continues, I hear feasibility factors being discussed. How is energy going to be gathered from fusion? Fission currently uses steam formation and transition into kinetic to generate power, one of two. And would fusion be direct to battery or load? Or would fusion go through steps as fission currently does?
That's a good question. One of the reasons why they wanted to try and answer that with the cold fusion was putting it in a watered down environment to turn it into steam and therefore turn over a kinetic generator through heat. Right now, there's two ideas. The first of which is relying more on the magnetic field itself in the environment and actually using a electrical accumulation system. It's similar to Tesla's wireless technologies, where he could transfer energy from one node to another through the air, kind of like you do with your cell phone to a satellite through radio waves.
Mm-hmm.
But
and we're talking about the real Tesla, not the company.
No, not the company making DeLoreans in the form of a pickup truck. We're talking about, actual Nikola, the Serbian wizard. Basically, we want to try and magnetically accumulate that and then transfer it electromagnetically from magnetic to electrical, which would require massive coils to handle that kind of load. And of course, that
capacitors.
Capacitors. So that in itself is a challenge, because then we need that much more raw elements. Like we would have to it's kind of like, again, I hate to quote Fallout here, but it's kind of like taking our digital, our circuit boards and throwing them to the wayside and digging up enough copper and enough, to make corona wire and to make capacitors and all, going back in time about 40 years to create these massive energy wells that can accumulate and then disperse this power.
We have to go back in time to get the materials?
No. We would have to go back in time as far as developing our electronics. Like a fusion reactor would have to have a more robust, more simple, more direct means of accumulating power from the system and then redistributing it as power.
Yeah, the way it works right now, like in Alaska where I was stationed, the way it works right now, we can get our power to supply base. We can get it from the electrical grid. We can get it from geothermics, and we can get it from like gas generators, right? All that power basically is fed into what we call buses, which is basically like, think really big fucking batteries. And those batteries, which are about the size of like 7 or 8, 10 of them could fill a small bedroom. And they can supply a headquarters in Alaska, which is really small, which is where I worked, for about 3 hours before we start having to rely on backup system, which is your gas generators, coal plants if you have them. We didn't have it in Alaska, but you can get all these different sorts of power inputs: solar power, wind power, geothermic, natural gas. You can get all those, and you can take the energy and basically get it stored into a battery as a backup. So when the system fails, because right now the way it works is your electrical grid is constantly feeding into your homes, right? If that grid fails,
it seems like the grid failed.
Sorry. So when the grid fails, basically what happens is that the batteries, which have 3 or 4 hours, the buses, to back up, kick in, and then that's when your generators start kicking in to start feeding into your homes. And so when it starts coming into your fusion, we've done fusion, but the problem is, in order to build plants, they're going to be really big, and then in order to get it to go into space for propulsion, you're going to have to miniaturize it. In other words, you can't build it in space. You have to build it on the ground. Then you have to transfer that technology from the ground into space. That's a weight problem.
Right. Yeah. Right now, it's not feasible or efficient yet.
Until we can start building shit in space, which I've heard theoretically there's some benefits to that.
There is. It makes sense. We built the ISS in space.
Yeah, gravity, other stuff, and that's way beyond my pay grade. But until we get to that miniaturization portion, until we get there's a great paper with the University of Washington that kind of dictates kind of the research process, everything from initial concept to proof of principle to working prototype that you demonstrate to the commercial sector that it's feasible. And when you get to the feasible part, you still got to take it and then transfer it from like power plant level to a power plant in space, which is going to be a hell of a lot smaller. There's going to be a lot more going to it because, again, like Tony was saying, you got all that energy coming in. You can only store so much of that energy, and then you have to kick what you're not using out. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, diminishing returns. It really is. you lose more than you get, given our
Mhm.
current level of accumulators and batteries and capacitors and any system of that caliber. We don't have the materials or the practice know-how to create an efficient method of storing and redistributing that power. But there is hope there is hope, because the only reason why we're having this conversation is because of a prior episode of Plomeek where you showed an ion fusion reactor that's going to be small enough to fit an aircraft.
I showed that? Really?
Mm-hmm. You forgot? That was like 2
Yeah.
weeks ago. I think it was PvP's last.
You know what? You're right. I did. It was
Yes.
it was a video by Lockheed Martin, right?
Yes.
Okay, now I remember.
Yes.
Somebody directed me there.
Yes. So if we can get that done, that is a step into being able to do that in space. And because while that would still probably be a weight issue to be sent up completed, parts and parcel, given our current method of delivering things into space, could be possible for something that small. So
I'm gonna go through some chats here. Gawker's Death Rattle says, "Yeah, not testing nukes is a positive thing."
Unless you're in North Korea.
Right, the great leader knows all. Herc 130 says, "I lived through those nuclear tests and nothing happened to me." Wow. Yeah, some people did live through it.
Mhm.
Canadian Spider-Man says, "Hello, Canadian Spider-Man." And Herc 130 says, "I lived through those nuclear tests and nothing happened to me." Wait a second, have I been here before?
He takes the neutron.
Now I get the joke.
It.
It
Well,
took
buddy-
3 for me to catch on.
Well, buddy, if you got problems, I was in Korea when they were testing some of those nukes underground in North Korea, so who knows what the fallout came and drifted south.
Yeah, we ain't got no worry about no brain damage.
Not at all.
Hey, Teague.
There's no lead in this paint either. Yes,
Good to
hello
see
to
you,
Admiral Teague. Mark Harkness says, "I hate to tell you," to Herc 130, "but I think you were exposed to chronoton radiation."
I want to read this as Professor Farnsworth. Can I read that as Professor Farnsworth?
You may.
I hate to tell you, Herc 130, but I think you were exposed to chronoton radiation, Maya.
Good news.
Good news, everyone! Your time frame is currently in reverse.
Actually, that would be, I don't know. Plaxard says, "So maybe gigantic water kettles. I understand using a water jacket as shielding, but continuation of steam power, shaking my head."
Mm-hmm. Precise.
Plaxford says, "Capacitors might also provide buffers and limited duration batteries. Maybe."
Mm-hmm.
And Plaxford, supercapacitors discharge quicker than batteries.
But they also accumulate quicker as well.
Well, and the other problem is with those batteries, you got a lifespan with them. Like some of the ones in Alaska, we'd have to replace after X amount of years because they would only hold a charge for like 10, 15 minutes, and they were supposed to hold 3 hours worth of power, and you had to constantly test them to see how well you're doing. So imagine if you're going from point A star to point B star, that's going to be X amount of years. You're going to have plenty of batteries on hand, and you're going to have to constantly test them, because if they just sit there and do nothing, that also degrades them.
Yeah, you'll have to be able to produce the batteries, make the batteries wherever you are.
Yeah.
Ploxford says, "Was not the grid designed as an easier way to monitor and monetize electricity use?"
On paper.
I would think that's the goal. Hmm. Gawker's death rattle says there's a form of fusion, kind of a holy grail, is a neutronic fusion involving barium. Overcoming the barrier energy is much tougher than DT fusion, but you can convert direct to electricity.
And that is the fusion concepts. That's the reactor concept in the DeLorean time machine. And the reason why that reactor on the back of that car was so compact is because it was meant to be an aneutronic fusion reactor.
Fun. Herc 130 says Padre was a Euclid crew member. Is this the truth?
Yeah, I worked on the AWACS E3, and I was also in the AOC up there, Air Operations Center. E3 is like a AWACS, Airborne Warning and Control System. So it's the plane with the big frisbee on top.
Wow. Yeah, and Plomeek to end the distribution.
What about beryllium spheres?
Oh. All right. Okay. Yeah. I was too busy trying to read another one to realize the Galaxy Quest.
Oh no. Who could this be? What about beryllium spheres?
Uh-oh. I didn't bite you. Okay. Gawker says, I actually meant to say beryllium, my bad. But unironically, yes. I suppose it would be in spheres.
Probably really tiny ones that get clobbered but with lasers. Kind of like the beryllium sphere reactor in Galaxy Quest, only not so tiny. It was constantly clobbered by lasers.
Yeah, the ones we use in reality are teeny tiny and they make them with diamond. So, I don't know how many we'd need to actually make enough power. A lot. Gawker says fusion only happens after you get past the flames and the blades. Oh.
Whoever wrote this episode should die.
Oh, here you go.
Whoever wrote this episode should die!
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, and remember to subscribe to Bird of Prey 5 at 3 p.m. Central. He has his bed life, and I'm sure he'll have one today. And Ploxford says flames and blades. Yes, those are the hurdles. Once past those, what about the collection and distribution of the power? And hello to Dalek451.
Good to see you, Dalek.
Franco says, Ploxford, I think they are the ones hit by lasers, but the power to the lasers is more than you get out of them.
Another diminishing return.
I hear that the National Ignition Facility said that they got more out than they put in, but really they had to use a whole bunch of energy to get there. So I don't know.
Dane Bramage is real.
Oh, the funny thing is my brain didn't want to read that.
You need more Fallout in your life. Not kidding. Time to take you out to Nevada. There's this nice hot spring that I need to show you.
I need to eat more cram. Ploxford says, are the material components or supporting circuitry to blame for the limited to no lifespan battery banks?
It's a combination of both, actually.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. So my background is as an operator, not so much as a comm guy, communications technician. But one of the jobs I had when I was in the Air Operations Center is I had to integrate with all the basic nerds, all the computer geeks, comm geeks. And they're the ones that would explain it to me. And so they would sit there and go, basically the parts get old and worn, or if they're not used at all, they get worn. And you got to find the happy medium. At least that's the way it's explained to me. And that was like 5-6 years ago.
That makes sense. Ploxard says, Omega 13 to the rescue. Yes. All we need
Tell
is 13
me.
seconds.
Tell
Yes,
me,
that's
what
Padre
is this
Pio's pick.
Omega 13? Is it a bomb? Is it a booby trap? Tell me! Does not the commander know every bolt and weld in his ship? Carry on.
All right. Is that Padre Pio?
Yes,
Hopla.
that's Padre Pio. That's so the story behind that picture is when I got to another one of my assignments where I wasn't flying, they had a squadron bar, and what they would do is they would take your call sign and they would make a quasi flight badge in order to get into the squadron bar so you could drink, because every squadron has a bar in the Air Force. And so what we, at least the flyers do, and so they put, the guy would sit there and wrote Padre, and that picture was the first one that came up, and so that's what they put on the line badge. And so that's the picture I always use whenever I need an avatar.
Oh, cool.
But
That's a
Padre
good
Pio
story.
actually exists. He was a French guy with a bunch of miracles. There's a whole Wikipedia page if you want to read up about him.
Oh. Yeah, maybe I will. Thank you. Sounds like some good history. And Dalek451 says, are you done with the episode already? No, Dalek, you're right. Usually I do the UFO episode first, but today I only have a short time with Tony here who wanted to talk about fusion with me. So I decided to talk about the science first.
Yep.
To have the most time
have
with it.
to head out in 14 minutes, less than technically.
14 minutes. Gawker says, yeah, achieving unity is the first big hurdle for fusion, which has only barely been done purportedly. I'm sure fusion is only 20 years away, though, just like it was in the 1950s.
Let's get Walter Cronkite on here to talk about the stories of the future.
Well, they published a bunch of articles back in late 2022 and early 2023 that said, hey, we managed to make X happen with fusion, but we're still decades away from anywhere getting to where we can build a power plant. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that they're probably shortening that stick on the timeline. I think it's probably 40 to 50 years before they get a viable power plant, just the way technology works. So
yeah, but they were saying 10 years ago, so now it's just getting a shorter stick, but extending it every time we reach the
Remember, this is the same phenomenon that we face whenever they say, oh, we were supposed to have a Martian colony in 2003, 2013, 2033, never.
Yeah, but if you're not even willing to build a launching pad on the moon, how are you expecting to go to Mars? I don't get it.
Get your ass to Mars.
Admiral Teague says, oh, I remember this stuff from Catholic school. Oh, I should ask my son then. He goes to Catholic school. He probably knows all about Padre. Admiral Teague says, Padre Pio was reputed to have physically fought the devil in front of witnesses and may have had stigmata.
I've never seen actual cases of stigmata, but I'm fascinated with it. Just to be able to spiritually become a martyr like that, and like have that stuff happen to you.
Padre Pio actually had it from a young age, and he was quite embarrassed about it. And he would show it to the clergy that outranked him, and they believed him, but there was a lot of people that thought he was just making it up. So he had to fight through all that stuff, and he got basically exiled to a certain degree, and put off into a little corner in France somewhere, I think, and basically did his little chapel. But people would come and flock to him and became like a celebrity. And I think he ended up dying in the 70s, but he had stigmata, and they tried to figure out if he was faking it or not, and they never really could prove it. But dude, I don't know.
Oh, thank you for that history. I'll look into that later. And Ploxard says, visions of the future and the human condition. And Tiki of Doom, hello Tiki of Doom. He says Keanu Reeves created cold fusion in that 90s movie Chain Reaction.
Keanu Reeves also solved an unsolvable equation in a more recent film that was a bastardization of The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's okay.
It was a bastardization of a movie, but it was okay. I like that review. What's the movie called? Do you even
The Day the
remember?
Earth Stood Still.
Oh.
It's a remake of, and he's basically Klaatu. And there's a scene where John Cleese is looking at an unsolvable conjecture, and he's got this on the chalkboard. And just to prove that he's that alien, he walks up there to it, and then they have their little mathematical duel where they're writing down all the figures, and then he's just like, "Oh, by the way, this is the solution." And he gives that, that blank Keanu stare at him, and John Cleese is just like, "It's you. It's really you. You're the alien. You just solved an unsolvable equation. Lol, that's the only evidence I needed."
It's proof you're from another world. You can do mathematics. that sounds funny.
You need the way they do Gort is an interesting take, but they don't even show anything from Gort till like the end of the third act.
Oh. It sounds like another case where if they would have just named it something else, it would have been good. Ploxard says, the sun was supposed to have a colony. All those launches at night should have paid off in dividends. What?
Might as well be walking on the sun. There's your 90s reference.
Hooray. Hey, I forgot about that song. I've been trying to look up 90s songs. And then
How about an 80s one? Walking on sunshine. Oh, sorry.
I don't mind a little musical interlude here. Darius Munchausen says, this is a very stimulating show to listen to at work.
Well, I appreciate it, Darius. And thank you for sharing my poll. It looks like a lot of people want to have the space-themed classic rock songs hosted by Star-Lord on the 28th over Perfect Cell's crooner competition. So
I didn't even know you could do a Star-Lord impression. That is pretty rad.
I have a costume, so I'm actually probably going to be on cam in the helmet and the jacket and the Walkman.
And well, but you can't have the playlist because then you get copyright.
Well, it's a karaoke stream, so we'll just.
Then okay, right. It's a karaoke. Yeah. So you play your own mix.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Great. That sounds fun. Someone needs to be Rocket. Gawker says, I know that we're running on limited time, but if we have a spare moment, does anyone have thoughts on the next generation fission power generation? Like breeder-based designs, like LFTR.
God, and it's 252. I honestly feel like the power allocation needs a little work in the LFTR. But other than that, the rotations on it sound solid. I'm excited to see what they do with it, for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping any advancements in fission reduces the toxic waste. Yeah, sure. Strontium.
Klaatu. Piranha.
Darius says, I didn't like that remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still.
No one did.
Well, it sounded like you liked some of it. Ploxard says, I do like the idea of LFTR.
I was punditing it, but
yeah. No, well, you made it fun anyway. Especially the thorium factor and solidification of fluidized salts. And Franco Walker says, I hadn't heard about the remake. I won't be watching it.
Good.
And Darius says that remake was almost as bad as the remake of Total Recall.
You just Tamaz.
Well, yeah, you're already failing if it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was basically made for him.
No.
Total Recall had perhaps the worst remake I ever seen. They didn't even go to bars.
They didn't even go to bars, yeah.
And that's because you haven't seen Peter Pan or the new Little Mermaid yet.
Oh no!
Oh my goodness.
No! I have to go to work. I don't need these bad thoughts in my head.
Mm-mm. Oh yeah, I don't want to think about Melissa McCarthy. She's supposed to be Ursula, I think.
Now, if we need a gravitational source for a G reactor, we might give Melissa McCarthy a call. Okay, on that note,
That's he's dropping science. Darius says Keanu Barada Nikto. And Matt G's here. Hey, Matt G. Klaatu's great weapon, says Darius, is just some virus or nanomachines or something. Dumb, cliche, and they ruined Gort.
They ruined Gort. They turned Gort into like this hive insect thing that just eats everything instead of, releasing a pulse to shut down all electronics, like in the original. It doesn't even have an eye laser. Gort doesn't have an eye laser. The eye laser is very important. He vaporizes tanks with it.
That's weird. They made it more biological instead of mechanical.
Like, look at what we can do with CG, guys. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the problem of making the CGI first and then make a story about the cool CGI I just made instead of making the story first. I feel like that happens a lot. Clocksword says too many mechanical parts to go wrong with the current LFTR systems that I'm currently aware of.
There's the hurdle. That's the hurdle. Like I said, the rotations are solid, the power distribution is solid, but as with anything in engineering, the more complex a machine is, the more prone it is to fail.
And Marcelo Lopez says, hello to all anti-derivatives, bringing her style. And I see anti-derivative Jill is bringing her style. Hey, great to see you, Marcelo. And Darius says, yeah, there are a couple of cool things about the Keanu remake, but I can't even remember them because I was so annoyed with the major choices that didn't need to be made, which ruined it.
Jill!
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what Matt G said. Tiki of Doom said, no 3-boobed women in the Total Recall remake. That's all that really needs to be said. Gawker says, I like the idea of liquid metal at normal pressure as the heat transit medium. It'd make things a lot cheaper in terms of facility costs and a lot safer for no possibility of radioactive steam events.
I like your thinking, Gawkers.
That sounds great. Yeah, and that's more feasible and more possible, I would imagine, than fusion at this point, is just making fission better. Why not?
We can make liquid hot metal now. Just look at any steel refinery.
And Plockster says, I felt the scale Gort had been portrayed within the remake was much more imposing as a whale machine. I'm always thinking of Star Trek 4 for some reason.
It's a good movie. It's my favorite too, by the way.
Cool. Darius says, gravitational source? Now I'm thinking about the device from Krypton and Man of Steel that terraforms the Earth. Okay, so did you have any other points you wanted to make today about?
Unfortunately, I have 2 minutes before I have to, go and basically start the car up.
Okay.
Again, this has been fun. Glad that you could have me on at such short notice. And
yes, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come lend your expertise on fusion power. It was a great brief science lesson.
It was brief.
Great.
If I had more time,
we can always have a part 2.
10-hour shifts really get to you.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
About what percentage of the notes did we get through of your fusion?
About 15 to 20.
Nice. That's great. That means we can talk about this topic about 2 or 3 more times.
I wanted to get into like some of like the more sci-fi applied elements. Like whenever I do these big research
Mhm.
projects, I try to look at the science fiction, pop culture. Hey, this is a concept, guys. Like the fusion reactor in the DeLorean. It's an A neutron
Mhm.
fusion reactor. And the whole point of making something that small is still able to fuse on plutonium, no less. For electrical conversion, immediate electrical conversion. The fact that they had Doc Brown doing that in 1985. It's like, how would you miniaturize that? How would you do that? That's the kind of like
Mhm.
deep dives I go for. It's like, how would I create the fusion reactor in the DeLorean time machine if the technology was available?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of my favorite things of science fiction is when you can find real world applications from it and be inspired by it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty great approach. I can't wait to hear more, either on my channel or yours. And so, do you want to tell us about your channel? And
You can find me at the YouTube handle at TStarkCEO. The Twitter handle is also the same name. I do have a stream that I do every Sunday that's just like a chill stream. It could go down the scientific route, or we all could be making fun of how people are bad drivers in trucker sims. It goes both ways. The brows are usually high or low, sometimes in between. Occasionally, I'll sing a song. I'll do a couple of voices, just whatever I'm feeling on Sundays. And on May 28th, I will be having a karaoke stream hosted by... Yes, Jarvis, I know. Yes. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. I have a karaoke stream at the end of every month. I'm also possibly considering bringing back a Saturday show, which is more of the one-man show comedy element that I
oh,
started.
right,
Yeah, that I started before everything happened.
I remember
And
that you used to have Rick and Morty reviews and
oh
just
yeah,
random things.
well, that was what the Death Clock karaoke stream was. It wasn't just a karaoke stream. It was me talking as Death Clock for almost the entire time and presented it as Death Clock. That's the way it's going to go with my karaoke streams. Is it's going to be presented in character, in universe for maximum fun. So that's good. But I'm also was thinking about
Great.
possibly bringing back my Saturday shows too, just for like the variety shows.
Well, yeah.
I know Scotty wants me to do the flying car segment from Clerks as certain characters. So,
Oh, you got a request. Hey, and it's good to have something to work at.
and outside of some scripted videos I got in the pipeline, including time travel, albeit very belated, given my schedule has went up to the 9s. And everything that I'm doing right now, I have hardly any time. Yeah, speaking of the individual that wants me to finish that video, there he is with pizza. Thanks for the pizza, Captain.
Yeah, pizza for time travel video.
And I'll be doing a series called I Died for This, where it'll be a deep dive into the MCU and its failings, starting from Phase 4. And those will be video essays / rants. And I believe that's all that I can recall at the moment.
That sounds great. Sounds like you got a lot of projects to do, and you're a busy guy.
Get me to 200. How far away are you from 400, though?
I'm 11 away, last I checked.
Oh, I think I'm at... you and I are neck and neck for our topovers. Yeah. I think I'm at 187, so I got 13 away from 200. Now, when I hit 200, guys, if I get to 200, that's going to open up this other project that I have that I'm not going to spoil too much about, but I'm basically going to be revealing an arch nemesis and some more channel lore for my shows coming up. So once I get to 200, I'm opening the floodgates because that means I have a base interest, and can't wait.
Sweet. Well, have a good rest of your Friday, and hope to see you again soon.
You bet. Say hi to his lordship for me. I'm not going to be able to make it tonight, unfortunately.
I won't be there for a while either, but once I get there, I will. Because I'm going to see Guardians tonight.
Yeah, that's right. I'm probably gonna see that tomorrow. and probably do like a first reaction once I
Mhm.
get out of the theater.
Spoiler-free reviews.
Spoiler-free first reacts, always good stuff.
Mhm.
All right, Padre, it was good to converse with you.
See you, buddy.
You know it, and you guys have a great day. God bless.
Cheers,
Me
brother.
too. And there we go. There's Tony Stark. Make sure to subscribe to youtube.com/tstarkceo or search his channel name. You can still call him Tony, but his channel name is Stark of Iron. If you look it up on YouTube by the search. Let's see where we were in the comments. Even though so make sure, as he was saying, when he says your lordship, he means Overlord DVD. So Doomcock is having his Friday Night Frolics tonight. Always fun to check that out. Gawkers says, but yeah, neutron degeneration and corrosive chemical interactions with the pipes remain an issue to overcome, last I heard. And Jim says, okay, Tony, calm down. Oh no, I liked his energy. Okay. I was just checking to see if Padre was going to say something because I heard a sound. Mark Harkness says, before anyone remakes an existing movie or show, they must watch it and submit an essay explaining what it's about before they get permission to start a script. I wish that were true, Mark. That would make everything a whole lot better. Just like Nicholas Meyer did. He had no idea about Star Trek, so he watched it. Amazing concept. Nobody gets. And hello to Pop Culture Curator. And everyone's saying goodbye to Tony. Later, Mr. Stark. And
Real quick.
Sure. Yes,
there
Padre.
was a comment in there about some of the liquid degrading pipes.
Yes.
I can tell you with ballistic missiles, there's two types of missiles, and they fly them with solid fuel states or liquid fuel states. And when you talk about liquid fuel states, the problem is it's very corrosive. So once you fill up that rocket, you got a lifespan on when you can light that rocket off.
And you got to replace the pipes.
Or it's just going to eat through the pipes and therefore eat through the rocket. And it's just going to, if you try lighting it off, it's just going to become a fireball. So
that makes sense.
There's what I'm trying to say is that's a valid point. What he's specifically talking about in that comment, I don't know because I'm not, again, a chemist, but that is an actual thing that I know with my ballistic missile work.
Mm-hmm. And you work with ballistic missiles.
Wow. Yeah, sort of. I was one of the guys that planned it in Korea.
Oh, planned it.
So, like, what year was it? 2013, 2012, 2013, I got stationed in Korea. And that's when a lot of news was coming around about missile test going on from North Korea. And so I was the point man for the pen and basically revamping the entire ballistic missile defense plan. So I had to get smart on their being North Korea's ballistic missiles and our defenses and the whole United States conglomeration of missile defense and how that entire process works. So basically in a 6 months time, actually 3 to 6 months time, I had to become an expert. And it was basically drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you had to do a lot of organizing.
Yep. You had to speak to a lot of people that knew more than you did and then try to listen and learn and then transfuse it to something that was digestible to a bunch of general officers.
Oh, so you're like the Carl Sagan for missiles.
Sort of. But yeah, maybe not Carl Sagan, more like maybe one of your your chief scientist out of University of Washington, or say, Yale or something like that, right? An Ivy League school. So you're not. I wasn't at Pentagon level, but I was definitely in theater level, right? So
Yeah.
my knowledge was a little bit higher than most people's.
Makes sense. Wow. Mark Harkness says, before anyone remakes an existing movie or show. Oh, wait, I read that already. Take care, Tony. Yeah. Where's my new star? There it is. It was at the pizza. Captain Infinity was giving Tony pizza so that he will work on his time travel video. And Darius says, I love young channels. So much passion and experimentation. So much interaction with the audience. Yes, and that's what Tony has. And Darius also says, I know a Cockney guy who reads every single chat out loud. Every show without exception. It's like every chat is a super chat. And so Darius also says, that magical time before you know exactly what the masses want from you and what the algorithm expects from you. True freedom. Or you just, I don't know, I don't really care what the algorithm thinks. This is a fun hobby. Stark of Iron says, God bless. Off to do a 10-hour droll shift of drag acidness. That's a fun word. Gawker says, I kind of agree to Mark Harkness. We religiously stuck to the explain it before you remake it rule. We'd never end up with the awesomeness like Starship Troopers. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, right. If Starship Troopers actually stuck to the book, it wouldn't be as cool. I mean, it would probably be a great movie because it matched the book, but we'd never end up with the way Starship Troopers. Yeah, Starship Troopers is kind of an exception, not the rule of deviating from so far from the source material that's something completely different. And I really love Starship Troopers. So good point, Gawkers. And Admiral Teague says, later on Saving Star Trek, will Admiral Teague escape the Tholian web to watch Shore Leave? Or will PDB and Dark Helmet go at it alone? Find out just before 5. Docker says, yeah, Papa, those hypergolic mixtures are nasty. And Gawker continues, explaining it doesn't even necessarily mean repeating it. Demonstrate you know what the property is. And Gawker says, fair enough. It certainly result in fewer tragic remakes. And Admiral Teague says, Starship Troopers is good fun. I put it in the same category as Independence Day. What? I think Starship Troopers is way better than Independence Day.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, so if you read the first Starship Troopers, it's basically, I think it was written during the Vietnam War, and it's basically kind of a commentary on like the military culture. And then if you watch the movie, the movie is kind of a
parody
on it, where they're sort of making fun of it. Which is good because I watched it when I was in college and I loved the movie. I still love the movie. Then you'll get movies like what is it, Avatar, and the Cameron or whatever his name is, when he made the movie with the blue aliens, he basically made it as a protest movie to Bush with the Iraq War, and it was anti-military
with a big sledgehammer.
And I sat there and I watched it and I go, this is an anti-military film. And I didn't like that shit when it was going on in the Vietnam War. And I asked my mom to explain why they hated people that were in the military, and she couldn't give me a good answer. And, I'm not a hypocrite, or I try hard not to be. And I thought the visual effects were amazing, but I thought the story was kind of half-assed.
Yeah, it kind of
And then
was.
Avatar
It
2
it
comes,
gets even worse. Yeah, go ahead. Continue, please.
but Avatar 2 comes out, and Rod Thunderheart, he's on a lot of these channels. He loves the movies. Well, he's also Native American, and from his perspective, he looks at the military as the dudes that came in and basically conquered his land and took it away. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can understand why he identifies with the movie and likes it. So I don't want
That's
to take
true.
away from people that like the movie. It's just from my perspective, I'm not a fan of it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and talk down to somebody that appreciates the movie based on their historical context.
Yeah, absolutely. But my problem with the second movie, it's not necessarily the political messages that Cameron's trying to get across. It's that the second movie is just half a movie. They talk about Earth invading and they don't even invade, and there's just like kind of little battle just in the little ocean part. And it's not even much of one really. It's just a family story, and it's just not really that engaging to me. It was just like they just made half a movie. They didn't finish it. And I'm tired of them. I'm tired of having sequels, like the promise of sequels, instead of just giving me a full story.
Yeah, it's fair.
Admiral Teague says Starship Troopers is good fun. I put it in the same category as Independence Day. What can I say? Independence Day is my favorite B movie, and Will Smith can't change that. Yeah, I like that movie too. And Franco says Avatar bored me to death. Yeah, that too. Well, Avatar 2 is just another one just like that, but even worse because it's half a movie. You mean like yeah, right. I still haven't seen Duh, which is the first part of Dune. Still waiting for no. Yes. And Hail Captain Infinity out there in the chat. Who likes to say that. So I also watched an episode of UFO. Did you want to look at that? Or
Sure.
Okay, great. I need to grab my slides for that. And I gotta do something wild I haven't done in a long time. I'm gonna put the link in the chat and see who wants to play. While I get my slides. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to share that. Those are my notes. You saw some behind the scenes production, never before seen. My notes.
It's always good to see how the sausage is made, even though it may not be as glamorous as everything else.
True. And I think it was a good first beginning. I like talking about that stuff.
I do too.
But I also had this episode because I also like UFO.
I've noticed.
Well, yeah. Let's see, where were we? Well, the best part. Okay, so unfortunately, though, this one isn't one of my favorites because it has an over drawn out mystery of a couple who turn out to be less interesting and more nefarious. Even though I guess that was the point of the episode. But the theme song is always great. If you never heard the UFO theme song, go listen to that. That's awesomeness. Let's see here. Gawker says, Alita Battle Angel was like that as well. Good first half of the movie. Now just waiting on the rest. And Dalek451 says, I never even saw the first Avatar film when it came out. No interest at all. Cared even less for a sequel. And notes? What are those? I have to organize my thoughts. Darius says, Jill is a rock star, taking big risks for big rewards. And Gawker says, on the topic of nerdy intersection between space and media, thoughts on the announcement of Babylon 5 animated movie coming out? Oh yeah, I saw that announcement for that. I don't know. I thought that they were going to do a sequel series or a reboot series. I forget which was going to be a sequel or a reboot. I thought that the creator was going to do that, but for some reason it's been changed into an animated movie. But I guess if it is a sequel to the original series, then that would be pretty cool. I guess that would be a way to be able to use all the characters. I don't really know. I don't know what my thoughts on that are. Obviously, if the actors are passed, they'd have to find actors that sound like them, and to
Yeah,
fill
because
in.
like what Garibaldi died. The guy that played, I can't remember his name. The doctor died. The big tall salamander-looking alien died.
Yeah, so an animated series might work. I guess we'll find out. The original creator is involved, so that gives hope that it's going to be something good. Mark says, Avatar. I'll go watch Gunsmith Cats. Gunsmith Cats? I don't know what that is. Let me see. I'm curious. Oh. It looks like an anime. Matt G says, animated movie? Babylon 5? What?
The reason why he wanted to do a not necessarily what I read was not a sequel but a reboot was he was limited by technology at the time, and this is back in the 90s when he was doing the series. Granted, he wrote the entire series and had escape hatches for like actors that wanted to leave or shenanigans or whatever, and he had those structured in there so he could default if he needed to, but he was still felt limited by the technology of the time. And if you compare Deep Space Nine to Babylon 5, just the CGI, you can tell which one had a bigger budget. So I can sort of see that. I'd be curious to see what he would have changed, but if he's going to do animated and then he's going to do a sequel versus a reboot, I'd be curious to see what it is. I'd at least watch a couple episodes just to get a feel for it.
I think it's just going to be a movie. I don't know if it's a sequel or a reboot. I actually don't know at all. I should probably look it up. Donnie Pearson says hello and Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hope everyone is well despite the breaking news that 8 Paramount-owned stations, including Seattle's KSTW, will drop the CW. Is that bad news? I don't know. I don't watch CW.
I don't know.
And also, happy National Astronaut Day and National Space Day. Thank you, Donnie. Gawker says, yeah, there are a lot who aren't with us anymore.
I don't know. Veer died.
Garibaldi, Zach Allen, Belen, Burkata, Dr. Steven. And Admiral Teague says, Babylon 5 can only be animated. Claudia Christian is gone too, if no one mentioned her. I would have enthusiasm for a Babylon 5 cartoon. I can imagine a different TV station in Seattle, maybe Kong, becoming the new home for CW. And Dalek says the only Avatar we're seeing is The Last Airbender animated series. But not the movie, right, Dalek? And Mark Harkness says anime about 2 bounty hunters with guns, high explosives, and a Shelby Cobra in Chicago. Admiral Teague says the original star had had real life mental health problems and threw the whole story of Babylon 5 out of whack for a couple of seasons. Oh, and King Charles III is going to be coronated. All right, I didn't even know about that. And so let's go to UFO. Let's see what's going on. So unfortunately, this isn't one of my favorites because of the drawn out mystery it has. But the best part of the episode were the UFOs. And so there's this couple in this episode that they're scummy, but nothing ever happens to them. So that's why I get kind of mad about this episode. If you want to know right away why I don't like it, but right, this lady, she for some reason her boyfriend's in the back seat, and I found that a little funny until I found out what they're doing, and waiting to figure out what they were up to, and the dismal lack of a payoff from it enticed me to just tell you that he's convinced her to kill her husband, but to make it look like she's just killing an intruder without realizing who it is, because they have this curtain thing up, and that's their story. They basically suck, but the actors don't. They do a good job for what they're given. I don't really know British actors very well, but Adrian Corey plays Liz Newton, and Patrick Moore plays Cass Fowler. But look, there's a UFO, and Lieutenant Ellis does her job, goes on yellow alert, and sends the interceptors after them. And Straker calls off the call to take down the UFOs. Oh, yeah. So there you go. Ellis sent the interceptors, and there's a funny production error here, in just a little bit. And for a reason you don't get to know yet, Straker decides to stop the interceptors from taking down the UFO. And Foster really doesn't agree with this. He orders the moon base to not intercept. But he still, even though Foster doesn't agree with it, he still does his duty and stops the interception. Now here is the I probably made way too many slides here. But Straker doesn't want to intercept.
I think it's funny that they're using a map.
Right.
to
They
track
use
that.
lots of analog in addition to the technology with the computers, but they also use real tangible objects. So here's the error that I think is an error. They weren't supposed to intercept the UFO, and yet their missiles are missing from their little planes, their little rockets. It's weird. So it turns out that Straker didn't take down the UFO because he realizes that they're destined to land in southern England. So this UFO is going to land in England, so close to Shadow that he sees this as a chance to capture the alien alive to find out who he is. And yes, they use a physical map.
Yeah, physical map is like World War II level stuff. World War II, Korea, Vietnam level technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they use a mixture of the computers and just it's like when they bring books out in the middle of Star Trek 6 to talk to the Klingons. And so we have some trucks trucking along, and if you need to fall asleep during this episode, just play the sounds of these trucks moving along in a loop, if you can figure out how to loop it. And I bet it would put you right out, because what these trucks generate some really incredible white noise. And so Liz and Cass, they arrive at a cabin, and just in case you didn't already figure out they're together, they make it clear. But she seems pretty trepidatious about all of it. And it turns out that it's because of the fact that they're going to murder. So, whatever. And so there really is banter. And there's been talk that there's no banter in UFO, but there is. So, Straker says hello to Alec, and Freeman says, well, let's get through this part first. Oh, and Foster spends a whole lot of time driving around looking cute. Oh, Freeman says, so you let one through? And Straker says, that's right. And Freeman says, why don't we do the job properly? And Straker says, what do you mean? And Freeman answers, ask the aliens for a round of drinks. And actually, that's not too far off from what Straker actually wants to do. I love this series for what it is, a show about protecting Earth from UFOs. However, I love that in the episode, Straker is increasingly concerned about who the aliens are exactly. In fact, Straker is so concerned about the aliens that he's willing to risk allowing it to land and potentially hurt someone for the opportunity to learn more about them. Because, of course, learning more about the enemy, will increase your chances of either communication or being able to fight them better. This is one of the most interesting aspects of the episode because Straker justifies this by saying that the population is sparse enough to take that risk. So that's an interesting moral quandary that the show does ask. So even in an episode where I dislike some of the story, the shadow stuff is always very interesting. And Foster spends a lot of time driving around. I guess he is looking for the UFO, and then later he's looking for the alien. And so part of why I love UFO is that it always tells you exactly where things are, and the coordinates for things, where the location of things are. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So they do use a map, but they also have a grid view screen over here of the area that they're searching. And this episode also has a dog. Sultan. He looks like a German Shepherd, and he's a good boy. See?
Aren't they all?
Yes. So, but the alien attacks the guard, prompting Sultan to try to maul the alien. So he tries to help. And he does help because the alien breaks his he breaks his helmet, and the liquid starts pouring out because he's got liquid in his suit in order to survive, because he can't survive very long in Earth atmosphere, so he's in a spacesuit that gives him the environment he needs. But he can survive for some time. As shown in this episode, he's without the helmet the entire time. And finally, he gets rid of the dog, but the dog's okay. Don't worry about the dog. The dog does not die. In case you're worried. But finally, the alien kills the guard. However, the guard is not okay. But the nice thing about UFO is that the alien always has a reason for killing. In this case, the reason is to have a body to put into the UFO so that Shadow will think that the alien died in the ship and will call off the search for the alien, leaving him free to do his alien business. And to follow up that assessment, which is also verbally verified later, the UFO blows up. It's a pretty cool explosion, too. So Foster had to have heard that explosion, and he does, and he reports it to Straker. And there's the report. And Liz and Cass are carrying on with their night leading up to the murder. It's always great when couples do activities together. Whatever. They go over this ridiculously, stupidly concocted plan to ensure that Liz has an alibi for not knowing that her husband is coming to the cabin, and to ensure that no one else knows where he's going. But it's so stupidly detailed, and life never goes perfectly planned. They're like planning this thing to such minutia for every minute, it seems like. And it's just impossible you could carry out tasks like this. It's worse than a list of heist instructions. But I think it's dumb, and I think they're terrible characters. But it's well written. It's a really well written show. So they don't. I guess I'm just mad that things don't end the way I want. So that doesn't mean it's a bad episode. But then we get back to Shadow, and the music is really great in this episode. And there are plenty of really positive things. Like one of my favorite quotes is right here. Alec Freeman says, "Just one thing puzzles me." And Straker says, "You should be so lucky." And Foster reports that the body in the UFO is not alien. So, yeah, because Foster realizes there's no hermetic seal on the person who is burnt to a crisp. So that makes sense. That's logical. And as much as I don't like this couple, there's a lot of really great shots of them doing stuff. Like he does a lot of smoking. Oh wait, did I pass it already? No, I didn't. That comes later. Oh, this is the convoluted plan. And yeah. My goodness, my notes are ahead of this episode. Oh, there it is. So this is a pretty cool shot of him lighting his cigarette with a candle, and he does look good going throughout this episode, sitting and standing around smoking, looking menacing, while having Liz do all of the crime, while he's the accomplice. And yeah, so that's what he's doing. And this is how long I had to wait to find out that they were going to murder Liz's husband. So but we had to hear the whole convoluted plan before we figured this out. And I have very little to say, but luckily there's lots of chat. And yes, I did record my bass vocal part, says Donnie Pearson. And so they're calling the husband. He thinks everything's fine. Gawker says, "I'd watch the F out of Firefly animated series. Shiny. Oh, that's a good idea. Firefly animated series. What an exciting proposition." And Donnie is down for Babylon 5 animated series. And Matt G says, hello, Donnie. Oh. And Michael Hare is no longer with us either. Gawker says, the best part of the episode focuses on a still of thighs in a short miniskirt. Oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I?
You can't take the man out of the. Gotta love testosterone.
Mm-hmm. Admiral Teague says, for a UFO to be good, I only ask 3 things. Straker use the futuristic bar. No, Straker doesn't drink. Smoke a tiny cigarette. Pondering things over a drink. Oh, well, that'll be Alec. Alec will drink. And 3, drives that brown car. Then I'm good no matter what. But Straker does ton of smoking. You don't have to worry about that there. Franco Walker says, why was the Klingon language written in a book in the first place? Right, it would be in the computer databank. Even on the Enterprise, you had everything in the library computer. It was nuts. Star Trek 6 just was trying to make a joke, and they did. And Dalek451 says the effects in Jerry Anderson's shows were always top notch, especially the explosions. Yeah, those explosions are awesome because they're real. Look at those amazing clothes, says Admiral Teague. And Franco Walker says, yeah, Jerry and his team really nailed blowing up models for maximum effect. And Admiral Teague says Straker is calculating to the point we sometimes see him fail to seem as humane and concerned as someone like James Kirk. Donnie Pearson says, although I stand with WGA, I hope the writer's strike would not affect Netflix's upcoming Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. And Dalek says, aw, doggy. Yeah. Oh, we'll see the doggy again. He's coming back. Who's a good boy? Yeah, he is. He shows up again. He's the best boy. So Admiral Teague says, that's why I say uses the bar. Oh, okay. Thank you, Franco Walker. He says like, share, and subscribe. That would be cool. I should ask people to do that more often because I'm only 11 away from 400. That'd be great. Oh, and then he's just saying some more platitudes about why they're together, but I don't care. I don't like him. And there's Sultan again. I do like him. He's going to help them find the UFO through scent. And so they hear somebody coming. They think it's the target. They think it's the husband that they're trying to kill. So they get ready and she fires. But it's the alien from the UFO instead. Instead of killing her husband, she killed the alien. And then I don't really. So then Cass slaps her for some reason and then abandons her to deal with the alien. I don't know. I'm not listening to them at this point. I had hoped not to see him again, but the what happens is Shadow kidnaps both of them. And so they never get a chance because of what happens next. They never get a chance to learn from their mistakes or decide maybe murder isn't such a good idea after all. after they actually do it against this alien. But they get no such retribution or learn no lesson, because then we get to this part where they're kidnapped by Shadow. And here's their little cars where they're gonna take them. And it's kind of funny when the elevator room starts to move and Cass sits down because he's spending some time trying to be indignant. And the reason that this episode is infuriating is the way the episode is framed. I was sure that at least the affair was going to be found out so that the husband's life could be saved. But no attempt at this is made at all. Foster even talks with the husband and showing him some weird photos. Here he is. He shows him some weird photos that were made and the gun that was used. And since he doesn't see an alien, his mind isn't wiped. So why isn't he curious? And why doesn't this cause a rift when Liz gets back to him in London? Like, he should say, honey, what were you doing with my gun? And why were there strange men from a film studio running around my cabin? Even though Liz's mind is wiped of her memory of the past 12 hours. So that's what happens. That's why Liz and Cass are kidnapped. They're kidnapped by Shadow so that Shadow can give them amnesia drug. Unless the amnesia drug also implants a false memory like Dagger of the Mind, then I'm not sure exactly how she could ever explain any of what's happened to Jack. And Jack is her husband, who should be curious, but I guess not. Guess he doesn't care about the ambush of his cabin. And Straker gives them some coffee. The coffee has the amnesia drug. They didn't realize it. And he says it's tasteless. So that's when they realize they just drink it. And Paul deduces that the couple were planning on murdering and says that they can't get away. Like Paul Foster wants them to pay for their crimes, or the crimes that they were trying to commit. But Straker says that if he sent this case to the public prosecutor, it would go nowhere, because you can't charge Liz and Cass for murder because the husband is not dead, and you can't charge them for killing an alien because the population can't know about them. And that's where the square triangle comes into place, because this is a love triangle that turns into a square where the alien makes the drama into a square as he adds another point. So at least the episode name makes sense. And on the surface, Straker's conclusion sounds fine, because he's right to say there's no way to convict Liz and Cass right now. However, to me, this conclusion lacks a serious amount of creativity. I believe that even though it's impossible to convict them, they should still be charged with the attempt to murder. The reason for this is that even if the trial doesn't go very far, just by putting the idea of that into the public record where everyone can see it as a possibility, then maybe Jack will realize something is up and finally confront Liz about it, to at least just reveal the affair. I don't see why they can't just do that, and which could possibly save Jack's life. But no, since we gave Liz and Cass the amnesia drug, Ed Straker says it's like the last 12 hours never happened, and the triangle that became a square is a triangle again. So I guess they just decide that resets the timeline or something. And so it's actually a pretty well written episode, and it was fun to watch. And it had a couple of interesting moral quandaries.
So taking the couple and putting them in an airlock and opening said airlock wasn't an option?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'll go with that option, because it's a lot better than this ending right here. Because look, I was like, okay, that didn't exactly end the way I wanted, but I could be okay. But then they put this clip at the end showing that because their memory were wiped and they didn't learn any lessons from killing the alien the first time, they decided to go through with killing Jack as they intended before. And in this last scene insinuates that they succeeded in it. But of course, I'd rather they get caught or I don't know what airlock they could be thrown out of, but that sounds fun. But I figure they've got to get caught sooner or later. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'd be advocating like, hey, you know, this couple's not going to stop. Why don't we just like save everybody some ass pain? The husband's going to think they ran off together while they're floating around the moon.
Yeah, they do mention that. Like that's what Foster says. They're just going to do this again. But Straker's like, I guess Straker doesn't think that there's anything to be done. And it is typical for a UFO episode to end in an unconventional way, and this does do that. So there you go. There's the episode for today.
Yeah, I would have went with the airlock episode. That would have been my option.
You would have sent them to the moon and then the airlock.
Whatever, deep space. You know,
because the only time they go to space is to go to the moon.
Yeah, you know, put them in the spacecraft going to the moon, and then sitting there going, "Hey, we got put them in the airlock and just open it up. You know, get rid of your garbage, and problem solved." But I'm also a little cold that way. If people are going to do bad things, sometimes it's just easier to get rid of the problem.
Well, sometimes Straker does that, but not in this case, I guess. It's too much work. I don't know.
Or maybe they were influential, so they'd be missed. Maybe there's that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that they were going to be important in some way instead of just being who they are. But they don't ever say that they're important. They're just terrible people who happened to be around when the UFO were around. And if they weren't around, Straker might have been able to find out more about that alien. So they ruined everything. They ruined everybody's day. That's all they're good for.
So it's not like he didn't have a reason not to flush him out an airlock.
No, he didn't. He had multiple reasons. He just gave up or something. I don't know. Mad G says Babylon 5 is great. I don't trust a reboot so far.
Well, we got a bad history of it, right? I mean,
it's true.
Peter Pan, Little Mermaid. Every time they do a remake, they kind of screw it up. I mean,
they do.
Can you think of one, Jill? I mean, you're pretty good with this kind of stuff. Can you think of a good remake?
A good remake.
A good reboot?
That's a difficult one. I actually, Scotty is better at great remakes.
I mean, the only one I can think of is, and I wasn't a big fan of the first Dune movie. The second one seems all right. I mean, it doesn't deviate from the books too much.
I haven't seen the newer one yet, so I need to go check that out.
But I mean, for most part, most of these remakes that they do, it's almost like they're trying to rewrite history.
Yeah, that is what they're doing.
It seems to me, and I'm not a fan of that.
And also, they know that if they use a known property, they can just they can succeed just based on the name instead of actually creating something new. But they want to make something new, but they don't want to actually take the risk of calling it something new. And so then they just use a name and do what they want and slap a name on it, and that's not cool. I know, I really can't. I can't think of any. I think Scarface was a remake from a long, long time ago, right?
I don't know. You got me on that one. I honestly don't know.
I don't know. But that's a good. Oh yeah. Oh wait, I just saw one that was a remake but it was in the 80s. The Little Shop of Horrors is a remake of an earlier film. That was good. But I think what you're really asking is a remake from more modern times. That's good. So that's more difficult to do. I have to think
Yeah,
about
I
it.
think Ocean's 11 would be a good one.
Well, there you go.
I mean, now that I'm sitting down and trying to put my mind to it, Ocean's 11 was pretty good. Then they tried to do some sequels, and they were kind of half-assed, and then they did an all-female version of it, which wasn't very good. And
Oh right, I heard about that.
yeah,
That wasn't very good. I don't know. It's a very simple formula. It seemed like it'd be difficult to mess it up, but I guess they figured it out. Oh, okay. Well, it's about time for me to head out. Actually, it'd be good. It'd be a good time to end the stream because Bird of Prey 5 is going to be streaming in just 5 minutes. So I'm
okay.
gonna get, but I don't have to leave like right away. But I'm gonna read the chat. I have enough time to read the chat, and we can go. We can. I'm not rushing or anything. Donnie Pearson says I'm down for right. Okay, yeah, animated Babylon 5. And Admiral Teague's requirements for a good UFO episode. Admiral Teague says yes. I remember that one too. Where was I? Matt G says if you don't say anything, that movie will be good or not wild. Oh, woke. I don't know. Oh, Matt G says the new Evil Dead movie was solid, although it could easily have gone south. This community didn't talk about it, and I think that somehow kept the movie from being bad, like a reverse jinx. I don't know. That's funny. And Admiral Teague asks, "Are you going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy review or reaction?" I'm going to watch it tonight. I don't know if I'm going to do a review or a reaction or not yet. I usually don't do those, but maybe I'll think about it. See how I feel. Matt G says the new Evil Dead movie was solid. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if it was a reverse jinx or not, but I'm glad you got something good. What Evil Dead movie? Oh no, we already know about it now. Oh, they're saying Phantom Boomer's in the chat. Hello. And then Franco Walker says, couldn't they give them a memory wipe in the cabin? Yeah, they could have. They could have brought some coffee to the cabin. Why did they have to kidnap them and take them all the way to their secret base? Down the room elevator, down to the... Oh my god. Franco Walker, thank you. You just made this review even better.
There's an idea though. Why couldn't they like go get some corpse, just random corpse, put it in the cabin, doctor a crime scene, put a bunch of LSD in there with the murder weapons and frame them for murdering a dude.
Oh, right, because that guard did die. And
Yeah.
somebody was going to die anyway. So they already have the cadaver. They just need to get their stuff together.
Yeah, stick them a couple times, make it a messy crime scene, and then call the cops.
Mm-hmm. Phantom Boomer says, I'm in favor of spacing them. Yeah, that's a good idea too. Franco Walker says Battlestar Galactica was okay until Series 3. Yeah, they start getting really heavy into the Cylons, and it's like, okay. But I don't know, I don't mind it. I like the way it ends. Darius says Scarface was a remake of a much older film with many changes made. The original was about an old school Italian mobster. Okay, thank you, Darius. And Oliver Stone's Scarface was different, enough to justify its own existence. Plus, it was great. Yeah, but I was thinking of remakes that were done way before, but modern remakes, those are where the problem lies. Branko Walker says, take care, everyone, and much love to you all. Yes. And Dalek451 says, you're ending. I was thinking of joining the panel. Oh, I'm sorry, Dalek. But I'm sure there'll be people streaming all day today. It's Friday. And so you guys are going to have some great fun, I'm sure. And in addition to Doomcock, there's going to be Bird of Prey 5 is going to be streaming right now. And also Admiral Teague. So you've got your options. And let's see what I got. I got some videos to leave us with. I've got a trailer for Doomsday Machine. So I'm going to be reviewing the Doomsday Machine on Tuesday. And of course, Lost in Space on Pop Culture Curators channel on Monday. And hopefully some Quantum Leap on Thursday And so Padre, do you have anything you'd like to share before we go?
Thanks for having me on, ma'am. I love the science conversations. I'm sorry I'm not more talkative with your UFO. It's just the only thing with the UFO is I was watching the intercepts, and again, that's one of the things I did for a living. So when they're using roll maps, I'm like, that's antiquated even by 1980s technology. And I was just like,
right. And this is from 1970, set in the far future of 1980.
Yeah, so that's it. I'm sorry I didn't have more. I've not watched the show.
Thank you just for being here. You're great.
I love the show.
It was good to have somebody here. Thank you.
That's why I stayed on. Love the show. I need to do a better job of talking up your show. Obviously, I don't have my own, so just thanks for having me on. Love you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, the science stuff is definitely something that I like to hear more from you, for sure. I was thinking of asking more about all the missile stuff you do, but I figured I got to go pretty soon.
No, that's cool.
So another time. Yeah, that sounds like a good topic, actually. I'll think about it. And let's see. Dalek451 says, I could stream myself, I suppose. Yeah, you could. It's Friday, guys. Have fun. And Franco Walker says, 9 p.m. here, so I'll be going to bed in a couple of hours. And Phantom Boomer says, Scarface was a nickname of Al Capone. And it's 4 p.m. here in Ohio. And Dalek says, have a good night, Jill. Good night, Dalek. Jill has to go be a mom. Yes, I do. And so I'm gonna go do that, and I'll be back later, but not here. Somewhere. I'll be somewhere on the internet. I'll talk to you guys later. See you soon. Bye.
What happened to your crew?
Oh, we were dead.
Mr. Sulu, you will lay in an evasive course back to the Constellation.
Aye, aye, sir. Belay that last order, helmsman. We're going to attack.
You will carry out my last order, Mr. Sulu.
I am assuming command of the Enterprise.
But I would advise against it.
Scotty, get us out of here.
Prepare to beam me aboard on my signal.
Gentlemen, I suggest you beam me aboard.
I've grown weary of discussion and argument.
Insults are effective only where emotion is present.
You know, I really wish they'd let us play music up here. Make these long trips go by a lot faster.
It's against regulations.
Yeah, I never understood that.
They just don't want us having a dance party when a proximity alert goes off.
See, that's a dumb reason. Because we'd already be on our feet, ready for action.